Alex, we had the head of Qatar. He said that in his view, Israel, they don't know how to deal with Israel, you know. And he said they visit our country, plot to attack it. They negotiate with the delegation and plot to assassinate the members of the negotiation teams. Is this not the definition of a rogue government? He's asking at the UN. And you know, Alex, it doesn't end this way, because what Tucker Carlson and these people are talking about is not just about Tucker Carlson, about all countries. You look at the Middle East, those people who yesterday were some sort of ally to the United States, are coming out and saying, "Oh, so what else Israel would do? They're gonna attack, they're gonna kill all of us together." And you recently, Naftali Bennett had an interview. He was talking about what is the plan on the part of Israel, and here is what he said. It's so much concern. It's unbelievable what he's putting out.
You have the General Assembly resolution calling for a two-state solution. Are you not taking any of this as a sign that the rest of the world doesn't agree with you anymore?
Oh, no, I'm very cognizant of that. But in terms of our international position, look, it's tough. But I'd rather have my children live and be unpopular than have them killed and be beloved in the world.
There is no end for these guys. He's not even in the camp. He's not even in the same party of Netanyahu. He's not in the government. He's somehow criticizing the government for some sort of domestic policies. But they're totally aligned when it comes to the foreign policy and what Israel is doing.
I think this is a paranoia. I think this is some form of a psychosis that the Israelis collectively drove themselves into, because the only way they can feel safe is if they kill everybody who might even potentially become their rival or a threat to them. And so today they are in very large numbers. They're talking about, in fact, killing little children is justified because they might become grown-ups and become jihadis and Hamas terrorists against us. By the way, I don't think Hamas are terrorists. I'm just paraphrasing them. And they're going to come for us. So if we kill them now, that's a good thing. So we're just, but like imagine if Palestinians or anybody else was using that same line of logic. If they said, well, it's perfectly fine and nice to kill Jewish and Israeli children because they might grow up to become IDF soldiers who are going to then abuse and brutalize us in our homes and in our lands. Of course, this would be completely unacceptable, but in their psychosis and their paranoia, the Israelis think that they're completely in their right to do whatever they want. So, that obvious, that would be like if I were brutalizing all my neighbors around here, because I think some of them might eventually want to hurt me. And so I hurt them before they can hurt me. That's, in an ordinary society, you would consider somebody like that either as a prison material or as a lunatic asylum material. And I would be put away if I was behaving like that. But I think that what's important to recognize here is that the whole Zionist project is much, much bigger than Israel itself. I think that Israel is the tip of the iceberg. The whole project is extremely extensive, and it's going through all the centers of power in the Western societies, in particular, again, London and Washington and New York and so forth. And this also was partly revealed after the Charlie Kirk assassination, because, again, as Max Blumenthal revealed, there's a whole network of billionaires in the United States who are loyal to Benjamin Netanyahu. And they're loyal to him in a very strange way, almost as though they were made to serve that role. And one of them is Larry Ellison, which I didn't really realize. But as it turns out, and then this all got drawn from the through the internet, his various statements over the preceding years, turns out that he's a fanatical Zionist, and that he is one of the biggest donors to the IDF, which is a very strange for a tech billionaire. If you just kind of started your business and became successful, and you made a lot of money, there are many causes you could support in life rather than a military in someplace half around the world, right? And so that's a very interesting thing, because I've also heard recently Larry Ellison in one of these forums. I don't know if it was like a Michael Milken forum or a World Economic Forum in Davos, something like this. He was talking about how all these control matrix technologies are going to ensure that everybody's on their best behavior, meaning, he's completely on board with this World Economic Forum agenda of putting us under complete control and surveillance, so that we can't really do anything. We can't protest. We can't even criticize. We have to, be up to date with our vaccine schedules and the boosters and everything. And so this is all part of the same thing. And then, Larry Ellison also features in an investigation that I have done myself over the, on the subject of the company called Theranos, which I don't know if you'll remember, but Theranos was about 20 years ago. It was a really big deal. It was a company run by a very young American woman called Elizabeth Holmes. And Elizabeth Holmes was supposedly the inventor of some kind of a revolutionary diagnostics device, which could accurately diagnose something like 120 different diseases from just a little droplet of blood taken from your finger. Well, I looked into that, and the whole thing was a fraud from day one. The technology never worked. She was never qualified to run it. The whole thing was an extremely bizarre Silicon Valley bubble that crashed from the valuation of $9 billion to zero in a very short time. But the curious thing is that Elizabeth Holmes's mentor and one of her biggest financial backer was none other than Larry Ellison again. And her entire board of directors were people from the security state, nobody from the medical field. It was people like Henry Kissinger, sorry, the name escapes me, but there was General Mattis, George Shultz, Sam Nunn, who was head of the Armed Services Committee in the Senate. So very, very powerful people in the deep state, in the military-industrial complex, in the security state and intelligence services. Nobody from any medical or diagnostics field. And this girl had no clue about anything. And there you have Larry Ellison again, the arch Zionist. And then as I completed my investigation, it turned out that this whole Theranos thing was the preparation, very probably, it wasn't explicitly stated, it was very probably the creation of an information weapon for future pandemics that were going to be wielded against all of humanity everywhere around the world, because their objective was to be able to test 20% of the whole population weekly. So the Zionist Project, World Economic Forum, City of London, because Larry Ellison is also very close with Tony Blair, Mr. City of London, in addition to being close to Benjamin Netanyahu. And so this all seems to come together, and it always revolves around the very same cabal. And it seems to be a relatively small cabal, but they're extremely wealthy and they're extremely powerful. But as my investigation into Theranos proved, they're also extremely vulnerable because truth tellers like Max Blumenthal, like Tucker Carlson and the like, Dave Smith, these people have the power to collapse them. And I've demonstrated that in the investigation of the way Theranos collapsed. It was this massive, seemingly invincible enterprise that collapsed because just a handful of ordinary people inside of the enterprise wouldn't shut up and continued to speak out and tell the truth in spite of the fact that they were discouraged, intimidated, pursued, one of them to the point of committing suicide. But they prevailed nevertheless, and the thing collapsed. And I think that Theranos is the small fractal of the bigger structure that's going to collapse in the same way, because there are brave people, there are courageous people who are continuing to tell the truth. And then, Trump or no Trump almost doesn't matter at this point. I think that the tsunami has taken off, and it's uprooting the whole structure of lies that's been carefully constructed for us for decades now. I didn't even know I was going to say all that.
Alex, I think something was said during the interview of Tom Brock, which was somehow a warning sign for not the Middle East, but also for Russia, China, India, for all these players, for Iran. And here is what he said.
I was hoping you weren't going to ask that, because I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. Look, the end game, when we say peace, it's an illusion. There's never been peace. There will probably never be peace, because everybody's fighting for legitimacy. The end result is somebody wants dominance, which means somebody has to submit. In that part of the world, submit, there's no Arabic word for submit. They can't wrap their head around submit. So eventually, prosperity is the only answer.
The ignorance is so huge, because the word Muslim means to submit to God.
Yeah. Nima, can you remind me again who was this man?
Tom Brock, the U.S. envoy to the Middle East.
Oh, okay. Well, to me, he's a typical member of the empire's equestrian class, who is, knowledgeable enough to do what he's meant to do, to sell what he's meant to sell, and sufficiently ignorant not to doubt his role in the process. And so everything he said there, I see as part of his indoctrination. It's not even true at all. It's nonsense. But it justifies him, because he says, hey, either I'm on top or somebody else is going to be on top. So it's better I brutalize others than them brutalize me. It's practically the same mindset as what Naftali Bennett said in the little clip that you showed just a few minutes ago. And of course, this is part of the disease of the Western world, that we cannot conceive of a future that's different from what we're doing now. And we're doing it, and it's kind of almost working for us, because we plunder everywhere around the world. We bring this enormous wealth, we distribute it in a tiny circle of privileged classes, who then throw crumbs and small privileges to people like Tom Barak, right? And Naftali Bennett and people like Keith Kellogg and so forth. And they continue parroting the same nonsense, because if they understood what they should understood, they couldn't continue doing what they're doing. So it's like one of those sayings, like you can't get a man to understand something if understanding it means that he will lose his job. but it's an ugly philosophy. It's a thoroughly ugly, godless, soulless philosophy that he has obviously embraced, and he is almost preaching it in a smug, cocky, self-assured way. But the more I hear of people like that, the more they seem to me weak, fragile, and lost. And I think that they will fall.